My name is Rupinder Singh, and today is the 1st of May 2016. I was 24 years old. I had just finished college, and actually, I was reasonably rudderless at that point of time. I had not quite decided on my future course of action. That was a very painful part of our awareness at that point of time. My father knew of the attack soon after it happened. We heard more than most people did because of my parents' position and because of the people they knew, and yet there was absolutely no clear picture about what had happened. And that was the more disturbing part. When the picture is not clear, you tend to take a much more drastic view of things and you imagine the worst, which we did. And it was so painful. I mean, how could this happen? How could this be allowed to happen? And at that point of time, we were very, very disturbed. We were in Delhi at that time. I mean, my family was in Delhi. I was in Delhi. My mother was in government service. At that point of time, she was the chairperson of Staff Selection Commission. My father was the president of Kendriya Sri Guru Singh Sabha, and he ran an institution called Guru Granth Vidya Kendra in Delhi at that point. I was in Delhi on that day, and it started off like a reasonable day. In the morning, my father said he wanted to get his eyes checked. He had an appointment at All India Institute of Medical Sciences. So he wanted to be dropped there. And he said, I'll call you and let you know when I'm done. Now, of course, calling meant landline to landline. Those days there were no mobiles. But that was easily accomplished, so that was not an issue. He didn't want us to wait around. So we dropped him there. And we came back, my brother and I. And then we thought, okay, what do we do today? And we were thinking of going out. We took a scooter and went around in the morning, came back, nothing. Then again we were going out, and this time we saw a bit of a crowd in front of us. And somehow, something made us take a U-turn. So we came home and we said, okay, let's go and get that. And very soon thereafter, my father came in. He had taken an auto rickshaw to come, and he was very disturbed. So we asked him what happened. And he said, from what I have been told, they've brought in the Prime Minister who's been shot. And as I came out, I saw the mood of the crowd. It is getting ugly. And I quickly wanted to come home. And I come home, you're not to go out anywhere at all. You're going to stay at home. Now, this was a guy who had gone through 1947. So, obviously certain instincts had kicked in. He then called up the Guru Granth Vidya Kendra and told them to get the children to safety. Now, Guru Granth Vidya Kendra is on Andheriya Mode, which at that point of time was the outskirts of Delhi, near Mehrauli. And the idea was to get them down to Greater Kailash, where there was a good Gurdwara where these children could be. A number of children were resident students at that place. These are young boys who had come from impoverished families who were being taught Guru Granth Sahib reading, kirtan, bit of katha, depending upon their inclination and their ability. And this was a course that had been started so that we could have people who are trained in a proper manner, who have the proper background before they get into gurdwaras. So these were the kids, and they were immediately put into, we had a matador of sorts and brought in. Some kids could not be brought in because they were not there at that time. They'd gone out somewhere or the other and they trickled in later. So another trip was meant to go and pick them up. But by the time the second trip was to take place, these people had, it was no longer safe. And this is where a neighbor came in. If memory served me right, Mr. Basim. He had a farm adjoining us, which had a big poultry unit. And he gave shelter to the kids and got them out of the Guru Granth Vidya Kendra. Now, remember, till this time, no violence had taken place in that area. But Basim himself was a partition person. And obviously there was some echo in his mind about what could happen. Eventually, the Vidya Kendra was looted, the library was torched, but we counted it as a great mercy of God that we did not lose a single life of the children who were under the care of the institution. As far as we were concerned, we stayed at home, and within home we were reasonably well provided and secure in that sense. There was a lot of messages going to and fro. We were trying to find out what happened. In the absence of any information, you would assume the worst. We had some relatives in different parts of Delhi, so we were trying to make sure they were safe. Sometimes the phone would ring and you would not get an answer because they had moved to somebody else's house. And but later you would get a message through somebody that we are okay, we are not there. And one heard a lot of what was going on. Some friends made it a point to come and meet us at that point of time. One never forgets that particular act of kindness. You didn't feel alone. Some people would come with something to eat or drink. And there was a friend of mine, a boy, who every day came with some milk. And he would just come, he'd give the milk and chat for 5 minutes and he'd go away. But those are the things that reaffirm your faith in humanity. But truth be told, during that turbulence, we stayed put. We were not in a condition to move out or do anything at that point of time.
How many days did you have to stay put and disconnected from the outside world?
I would say 3 days. We were lucky. If you ask me personally, I know people I don't know a single person personally who lost his life during that thing. People had their properties damaged. Our own Vidya Kendra was damaged. But loss of life was something we didn't have to deal with. Yet, when you went out, you met people who had lost everything. Entire family wiped out. A number of cases, the males of entire families wiped out. It's a horrifying thing. In the immediate aftermath, the default was to try and rebuild what you had lost. So it became a very, very important thing for us to get the Vidya Kendra going again. And And I remember going there on a jeep, looking at the room that was the library, and nothing but books still smouldering. I mean, I don't think we realize how long paper can smolder after it's been set on fire. It was still embers, it was still very hot. And you had to use spades to take it out. There's a lot of dust, everything else. Beds had been broken, things had been taken. But as we started moving around, as we found it possible to move around, people started helping each other out. The resilience I saw in people at that time was incredible. And I also met a number of people who had risked a lot to save victims. Much of the initial help, whether it was shelter, whether it was more than that, came from people who were not sick. Kind-hearted people who were reaching out. At the same time, I mean, you were horrendously aware of the goons who had perpetuated it all. And in our case, what we started doing was we started cleaning up. We got the kids back, the elder ones of the lot, to help us. We were there doing things ourselves. We said we were going to make it better, and we did. I remember this one girl, a Sodi girl. She was married to a Scandinavian diplomat, coming up to me and saying, I have to help people out. I can't do it in my official capacity. How do we do it? I said, I don't know. What do you have in mind? She says, I have a lot of things I want to distribute. I said, we'll put them in my jeep and we'll go. So my brother and I would do that. Or I would pass them on to other friends who were actively engaged, going to people in camps and so on and so forth. And things would get distributed. And in time she helped us get some typewriters and some sewing machines which could be used for people to give them some basic training, some means of livelihood over a period of time, and so on. In the camps, as well as at the Vidya Kendra also later, we set up a vocational unit to help out people. But that was later. First it obviously went to various groups of people, wherever people could be helped. One internalized it. And this whole experience definitely acted as a catalyst to my decision of moving out of India. By December, I was in New York. As I said, I was reasonably rudderless, and suddenly, I was in New York. Yet I had to come back because I felt that I needed to work more on my land, my people, my heritage. So I did come back after 6 years. And that was one impact. Those days, very disturbed. But much of the experience was internalized. There are times when you look at it and you say that God saved me. When we saw the crowd, if we'd gone in, that was it. You would have been a part of that. You took a U-turn. And in a way, I like took a U-turn after that because there was something, okay, I have to make something of myself. I cannot allow myself to get adrift. And maybe that, I don't know, that internalization kind of simmered, and from studying religion, my focus came into journalism. And I started working as a journalist, telling stories of people, yet not my own story, which took another 30 years before it came out in the form of a short fiction book. It was different. No one doesn't spend too much time thinking about all this. It was a very major release. A number of things that happened that time with me, with my friends, with others I knew or learned about, figure in it. And this was a book that was struggling to come out for a number of years. And when it did come out in a gush. There was no long structuring, there was no planning, there was no looking at various references, which is how I work with other books. In this case, once I started it, I was at it. I'd get up at 4 o'clock in the morning and be at it. I'd go to sleep, not be able to sleep, get back on the computer. It was there. I didn't have to refer to anything. Eventually I did refer to a few things. Of course I did. But most of it was outpouring, which definitely this format allowed me to interweave a number of things, a number of, in a way which I thought was more suitable today. Facts are known, various things are known, interviews have taken place, all kind of work has been done on it. But for me it was something I needed. I have no illusions about contributing to the massive corpus that is already there on 84. That's there. But this I had to do for myself and hopefully for people who read it to have some reference points which they can relate to. So that was that. The most important thing to know about 84 is it happened. It was a horrifying experience. And it happens in so many forms, in so many places, all over the world, even now. We need to be aware of our past and we need to be sensitive to occasions when such things take place, even if they do not directly impact us. Riots, killings, mobs, mass violence, they were all esoteric terms till it happened. It's only when it happened that one's empathy towards such incidents arose. And it's certainly better to be able to empathize without it happening than to have it happen to you. 1984 happened. It was a terrible period of our lives. It happens again and again and again. In India, in different parts of the world. Whenever a mob comes together to hunt for innocent people, you have an echo of 1984. That's something we should never forget.